So I was in the Aldi the other day and they had loads and loads of drink options. I'm looking down the aisle, there's all sorts of things, all sorts of great value. You know, kind of obviously the slightly kind of close to the original brand options. And I was just overwhelmed because I ended up just picking up a Diet Coke because I know what I'm getting, which is kind of relevant to what I want to talk about today. So before you create demand, before you want awareness, you have to be choosable. What do I mean by that? Well, there are lots of businesses out there that will spend money on advertising and they're pushing out their content and it's just not landing at all. The reason why is because they haven't made themselves choosable. What they're looking at is closing the deal rather than making themselves an option. So marketers talk about the marketing funnel, which typically begins with awareness, and then you've got consideration, and then you come down to preference, then you've got purchase, and then you might have advocacy. But above awareness is choosability. Because if people are aware of your brand but don't know what you're for and what you're about, then that awareness is just a waste of money. You're just pouring money into a broken funnel, into a broken ship. So what does weak choosability look like? Well, weak choosability means people kicking the tires and walking on. It means sales calls that take 20 minutes to explain what it is you're doing. It means a business not able to explain itself concisely to somebody that might be in the market for them, or just a friend or a family. What it actually looks like is a dead funnel afterwards, because without being choosable, the awareness has no value, and that follows down the funnel. So it's a fundamental that's often missed, and I think it's important that we cover it off and we talk about what it is, what choosability actually is. How do you become choosable? Well, firstly, you have to be absolutely clear on who your target market is. And I've talked about ICP before, but this is from a different context. You have to be absolutely clear who your target market is, what problem or challenge they're experiencing that your product or service can fix, and how you present that to them in the world. Now, I speak to a lot of founders where they'll use lots of technical language, where someone that has been deep under the bonnet and in the engine of this business, this product, whatever it is, will understand it. Maybe people deeply ingrained in their target category will understand it. But to everybody else, it means nothing. It's a turn-off. They walk away. And that's affecting your funnel. That's affecting your pipeline. So instead, think about, for your target, the problem you're solving, what is your value proposition, and how do you message that so that they see themselves and they see their problem in your solution? You can't just go up to people and say, I'm the answer to your problems. You need them to understand, firstly, what their problem is, and they probably do, but they might not understand the solutions. So they need to see their problems reflected back to them. So if you've got an unmanageable database, what's the actual problem? Is it that you don't have enough tables or notifications or different kind of settings in there? No, it's not. The problem is taking up too much time and not delivering anything. So how you would position to those people is, in effect, we're going to take away the pain, we're going to take away the wasted time, and you're going to have an easy to use CRM, for example. So that messaging should be speaking to them of their problem. That's how they see you as a potential solution. That's how you make it onto the long list, let alone the short list. And we know in B2B in particular, we have buying committees, which doesn't mean it's all rational, but there are buying committees where people need to be convinced. Various people, various roles need to be convinced. You might have the economic user, you might have the end user, you might have the influencer, you might have procurement, you might have the manager, you might have the CEO. All these things come into play. Now, if the person that's having the problem can't explain your solution to everybody else, you're not making it onto the short list. Okay, you probably haven't made it onto the long list. what they're going to be doing is looking for answers to their problems. And that's kind of what takes us to then looking at what are the alternatives to whatever you're offering. And let's be really clear about this. The alternatives are not always just businesses or products that look like you. There are a whole load of alternatives to giving you my money for whatever it is you might give me. And some of the most common ones are inertia, just doing nothing, just kind of making do and carrying on. Or hacking something together. However complex the technical or the database situation might be, many people will just fall back on a spreadsheet because they know how to use it. Then you're going to have people that are more specialist than you, maybe in a specific sector, maybe too specialist. But if they're speaking the right language, they're going to get on the shortlist. Then you'll have people that are similar to you. And then you're going to have people who are bigger, who offer a whole range of services, some of which might match yours. Now, they obviously have a benefit. They have an advantage of size usually. They have an advantage of size. They might already be in the business having conversations about any of these other things they do. So the only way you can win there is to be choosable as the solution to the problem that that person is having. So think to yourself, when was the last time you were looking for something, you needed something for your business? Maybe it's email management, or maybe it's cybersecurity. When was the last time you tried to find a solution and frankly just couldn't understand half of what you were looking at? Now that half might have included your solution, but because they're not choosable, you've gone elsewhere. Don't do that yourself. So let's think about the commercial sequence. I have a problem. Not I mean, yeah, I probably do, right? I maybe drink a bit too much. But no, so someone has a problem. A prospect has a problem. The first thing they notice is the problem. They might not know what the solution looks like yet, but they know what the problem is. So they're going to look for an answer to their problem. They might speak to someone, they might Google, they might ask AI. Increasingly people do. And so word of mouth and digital word of mouth is quite important in terms of people understanding what options there might be for the problem they're having. Once they're starting to do their research, then and only then are they starting to see the categories that you might operate in. So again, I just can't keep on top of my sales data. Yeah, I'm using a spreadsheet. I've moved up from using Post-it notes. I used to keep those all over the wall. I'm using a spreadsheet. I might not know what CRM is yet. Who knows? There will be people out there. So pushing CRM CRM has less value for that type of user than get all your sales leads in one place. You're reflecting their problems. So we're being choosable. Then and only then is it worth putting time, money and resources in creating awareness, in being visible. Because if you're visible without being choosable, you are just wasting time and money. Then from awareness, we want to be considered. Now, that's partly down to your messaging, it's partly down to your product, it's partly down to your solution, but it's also partly down to how convincing you come across. Testimonials, social proof come into play there. Then we might have a preference. Now, at that point, particularly in B2B, at that point you might have technical people coming into the buying committee and comparing things together in a more rational way, which is kind of how we like to think, or how people used to think B2B was the whole way down. It's not. And then we get purchase. So ask yourself, when I look at my website, am I going to see my problem in that? If someone were to ask me what my product or service was, could I describe it in less than 20 seconds without losing them? Do I understand what other alternatives people have and where I sit in those? Again, you might have the greatest CRM platform in the world, but if it costs 10 times more than a spreadsheet and the pain differential isn't significantly enough, more people will put up with a spreadsheet. So we need to understand the value to people as well. So I think where I'm going with this is, let's look back at the fundamentals. Let's give ourselves the best chance. Whatever sales or marketing activity you do needs the best chance to land, and it can only do that if you're choosable.